Hey guys, welcome back to my channel on this lovely sunny day in the Midlands. Today I'm going to talk to you about specialism in archaeology, which was requested on my previous video. And I think also there's kind of some confusion about what exactly like a specialist is, what it means, and how exactly you would go about becoming one. So I want to kind of elaborate a little bit on the subject for you today. A specialist is generically going to be somebody that has more than just a bachelor's degree in archaeology. Usually you have a master's, and quite a few people also have a PhD, although that's not necessarily required. An example of kind of the learning process or some of the steps you would take in order to become a specialist would be, let's say you're interested in archaeology in ancient Egypt and kind of the Near East. Like I was myself. You would start off by doing a bachelor 4-year degree, or 3-year if you're in the UK, in just either archaeology or some kind of like Near Eastern or Egyptian archaeology subject. Say that during the 4 years that you do your undergrad, you discover that you have a particular interest in something like the New Kingdom period of Egypt, not just like the entire subject, but you specifically want to study something in that. So then for your master's degree, you would choose something that is like a program that focuses on the New Kingdom, specifically the language, the architecture style, the art, the dynasties, all that kind of stuff. You would focus on that specifically for your master's. In the UK, we do a 1-year master's. In the US and Canada, you typically tend to do 2. And now let's say during your master's, you find that you are very interested in the ceramics of the New Kingdom period. Then, once you finish your master's, you would look for a program, or probably more specifically like a professor who is already specialized in that, and try to get on a PhD program that would study under them that specializes in New Kingdom ceramics and pottery. And then during your 4 years in that, you become a specialist in and an expert in that field, and that would make you a specialist. You just end up, as you go along your studies, finding a niche, finding something that interests you more than anything else, and just study it, and you just learn more about it. If you're following this particular kind of career, I guess, progression, preparation that I've just talked about, you're probably going to be ending up spending most of your life, hopefully, working at a university. In this way, you become a professor, so you're teaching other people in your specific area of expertise, and you will also be supervising other PhD or master's students, and then conducting your own research. I should also probably mention that you can specialize in like pretty much anything that you want to in archaeology, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like an artifact type. For example, like you could be an Egyptologist, somebody that specializes in ancient Egypt. Usually you'll pick a period, and you don't have to necessarily be an expert in ceramics. You can be an expert in something else, but it's just kind of whatever draws your attention. You go, kind of the possibilities for what you can do are endless. It's just kind of finding out what really has your interest and what is going to keep you interested over the long period of becoming a specialist, and then the rest of your life being a specialist. How this kind of usually works with commercial archaeology is that as an archaeologist, you are not necessarily an expert in one period specifically. You tend to be, the phrase that's usually used for us is a jack of all trades. So you will know, the basics of a lot of things, but you won't necessarily be very well educated in one specific thing most of the time. When you're excavating a site, you will know enough to say, okay, this is a wall, this is a building, this pottery is medieval, this is a medieval building. But you're going to need to consult a specialist in order for them to tell you maybe what kind of building it is, a specific period, a specific building type, all these kind of things that are going to tie into your interpretation of this site, and they will get consulted and paid for that. Being a specialist usually means that, as opposed to being involved with the actual excavation, you are involved with the post-excavation process of the site, where you are processing all the data and information that has come out and then interpreting it for your report so that you can come out and say exactly like what is going on. For example, the site that I'm working on right now has like so much archaeology you really couldn't fit any more in, and we have tons of experts that we've actually already had come in to look at stuff, and we'll be sending stuff to once we finish the actual site, because our finds manager, again, there's someone that only knows kind of broad basics of stuff. They're not going to be able to interpret something really specifically. So examples of people that we will use on site kind of regularly when you have a big site such as ours. You have people that specialize in human remains, osteologists like myself. You have people that specialize in construction building material, so like roof tiles and bricks and how to tell what period things come from and stuff like that. People who specialize in metal objects and identifying what they are, because if you've ever found one, you know it's just a giant lump of metal and like there's no way that I can tell exactly what it is. Probably one of the biggest ones that people know about is somebody who specializes in ceramics or pottery, identifying the type of ware that it is, where that comes from, what period that specializes in, and like what kind of like piece of pottery or vessel that will come from, and what that can say about the kind of like what the site is being used for. So for example, really fine stuff and really nice stuff you'd expect kind of maybe in like a dining setting, whereas the more utilitarian and coarser wares you'd expect in somewhere like a food preparation area like a kitchen. There are also people that will specialize in looking at the lithics and identifying tool types, debitage, all that kind of stuff. So again, there's like so many things that you can specialize in. And like I'm not going to even come close to covering them all, but I hope I've like scratched the surface a bit for you. The problem with specialization is that, you know, a lot of people want to do it. They would like to specialize in something also because specialists get paid quite a good amount of money. However, the amount of jobs that are in this kind of field are really, really limited. This is mostly due to the fact that people stay in these jobs for a lot longer than you would expect a field archaeologist to do. Our bodies just start to wear out for a while, and the amount of people that stay in this job later on to their life is quite small. People usually transition into something else. Specialists can do it all the way up till, you know, past retirement if they want to. While, you know, every site brings up a lot of stuff for post-ex processing, not every site has the money to send it away to a specialist in order to get that kind of expert opinion on stuff. So there are there's less work to go around than you would expect, so there's not as big of a market for people to have companies. A lot of the way it works is that someone just does it for a really long time. As they get closer to retiring, they decide that they want to kind of pass their knowledge on, and they'll take on maybe two people, but that's it. And as a lot of things are with archaeology, some of that stuff will come from not necessarily a job posting, it'll be like people that you know. So it's a bit difficult. Like I would love to work as an osteoarchaeologist 100% of my career. However, I've always been very realistic in the fact that I don't really expect that. I've only ever seen like one osteo job posted on the Badger website in like the 3 years that I've lived here. And it's just not gonna happen. So I've had to kind of adjust my career goals for, I am like a field archaeologist, but I have this specialization in osteology that hopefully one day, once I have enough experience and I'm far up enough the ladder, I can actually use that and maybe translate it into becoming part of my job, but it's not my only job, because a lot of the time people just can't subsist on only that work for the entire year round. It's just not possible. The other thing with osteo as well is that like our degree is really, really popular right now. A lot of universities have courses for it, and they just churn people out a bit like a factory, but there's not the jobs available for those people to have when they finish. So sometimes it can feel a bit like I've spent all this money on this degree and I'm not going to have a job in it. Like, what? In this way, if you are considering trying to go along the specialist route, you need to really think about and have a clear picture of what you can expect to get out of it before you spend a lot of money and time on school. That's why I have said, and I've said this before, that is why I chose to get a just master's in osteoarchaeology rather than getting a PhD as well, because I knew that I just didn't really want to spend 4 years doing an extra degree without any guarantee that I was going to be able to use that degree to get myself a good job after I finished. So right now I have like a good job as an archaeologist, and then but I had the potential one day to start moving into becoming a specialist as I get older and my body starts to say, hey, you work yourself to death and your knees are shot. You need you need to stop. Like I said, becoming a specialist or an expert or whatever in, you know, an artifact type or whatever, like this isn't going to require dedication on your part. If you really want to do it, it's entirely possible, but you have to like you can't just expect it to come to you. You have to take the steps to make that happen. So don't be afraid to, if there's like an expert or a specialist that's doing a tour of your site or something, you know, don't interrupt them. But like at some point during the day, maybe go up to them and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm really interested in this, and, you know, just talk to them and engage with them, because they will remember you if you do that. If you just stand there and just kind of expect them to know that you are really interested in that and that they're going to come specifically talk to you, you're never going to get anywhere. Don't be afraid to put yourself forward. It is a bit of a conflict though. I saw a post on Badger just this week about someone who is a specialist, I think, in ceramics, and they were contacted by a client who has a person that they employ that's interested in ceramics, and they would like their expert to train this person that works for them in it, which would essentially eliminate one of these person's contracts, one of these person's like sources of income. So it's a bit of a conflict in that, you know, do you train the next generation? Do you pass on this knowledge before you're ready and thereby eliminate like some of your business for yourself? Or is it like you kind of keep it back so that you can keep on making money? It's like, it's hard because on the one hand you can feel really selfish, but on the other hand, like, you need to eat and you need to pay rent. So it's a bit of a conflict, and it's kind of, I think it's an ongoing issue in archaeology that we need to deal with, hopefully within the next couple of years, although I'm not going to get my hopes up. I always wanted to kind of be a specialist in Egyptology. That was my like big thing that I loved when I was younger, and I was so into it, and I read all the books, and I knew so much. I still know so much. And but then I got to university and I realized that I wasn't the only one, and I had so many friends that were also interested in that. And then I kind of realized how difficult it was going to be for me to break into it. And then I also discovered how much I enjoyed just like excavating skeletons and finding out as much information as you can from human remains. And I decided to do that instead, because it also didn't, like, the thing about specializing in Egyptology is that you can only do stuff like in Egypt with Egypt, which in itself is a difficult thing in general, which I will talk about another time. But that you're stuck there in that geographic location for the rest of your career. Whereas osteo, I could take that anywhere in the world. Everybody dies and everybody has a skeleton. Whether or not all those skeletons are found is another thing, but there's also, it's always going to be there, and there's always going to be some kind of work that you can do. So that's kind of why I chose that specifically as a specialism. However, like I've said, like, I paid all this money for this degree, and being able to use it is like something else entirely. As per usual, I hope this was helpful for everybody, including the person that asked me about this on my previous video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe. I actually managed to like do a video like a week on a weekly basis for like 3 weeks, so let's hope I can keep up the streak. It's a beautiful day today, so I'm going to leave you now and go have a beer and sit outside reading a book. So I hope the rest of you enjoy your Sunday as much as I'm planning on enjoying mine, and I will see you next time. Bye!